Welcome to our Kingdom Empowered Women Making History series here at Life Purpose by Design. We are honoring Kingdom Empowered women who have chosen to take their faith to the next level, to activate their I live by faith and not by sight, to rise to God's higher purpose in their personal lives, their business lives, and their ministry callings. Join the conversation with our very special guest today, author and speaker and life coach, Nina Scott, and let's rise to purpose. Here at Life Purpose by Design, our mission is to inspire, to equip, and engage women to live empowered on purpose, to live life with 3 C's: clarity of life purpose, a courageous faith, and a commitment to finish to live the purpose life that God has destined for them to live. We are celebrating everyday women who have making the decision to rise to the purpose for which God has called them. Women who recognize that our circumstances matter to us, but they must not master us. So, on today's episode, we are what I call issuing a clarion call to women to rise to their God designed purpose. We want you to get your hope up, get your faith up, look up, and get ready to rise up. We're calling you out of places of settling for less than what God has purposed, not hanging around with low-lying fruit, what's easy, what's in your comfort zone type of mentality. We want you to stop lingering in low-level desires and dreams and visions. And we want you to be inspired to fully embrace your God-sized dreams and visions. We're calling you from stagnant places of disappointments, regrets, and retractions because of past mistakes or failed attempts. On today's episode of Rise Woman, we are celebrating and welcoming our special guest speaker and coach, Nina Scott, to our Rise Women celebration. Hi, Nina.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
I'm doing so great. I want to share a little about you. There's a lot I could say based on just how you have positively impacted my life in such big ways, ways that you don't even know because I haven't told you about them. But Nina is a speaker and certified life coach. She is a veteran in the U.S. Air Force's Reserve. So, first of all, we thank you for the service to our country. She is, I love this. She said a chief home officer, AKA a stay-at-home mom. We know that requires a lot. She's also the host of a community of mamas on a mission to live beyond what they can do for others and to thrive in joyfully serving themselves first. Nina, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of our Rise Women celebration.
No, thank you for having me. It is truly an honor, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you and your audience.
Okay. Nina and I, just a little background, we met as part of another empowering women
Mhm.
platform or community. It's more than a platform, it was a community of sisters called the Boss Hour. And we actually would rise early in the morning, and she and the founder of that community, Dr. Jessica Berry, would actually have this community of women where you all just poured into us, you challenged us, you made us rise to our purpose. And so, as part of my meeting you, I was able to learn a lot more about myself. I was able to tackle some of my low lying fruit hanging out in places of stagnations and dealing with disappointments. So, I really appreciate the life that you live as a kingdom empowered woman and all the work that you do. On
Oh,
today's episode, when we say rise to purpose, the vision that God gave me is that we're rising to purpose according to the master's plan. And the master is Jesus Christ himself, because his word tells us that he has a plan, he has a master plan. So this is not about us embracing our good ideas and thoughts. There's a master plan that we are issuing a clarion call to women to rise up to. So, very quickly, for Rise, one is ready, to be prepared to embrace the unexpected opportunities that God places on our path. Two is ignite. We got to work up our faith, that inner knowing to go full speed in your God inspired dreams and visions. And one of the things that God gave me, I've been saying full speed, but God kind of corrected that. And He said, I want you to go in God's speed in
Mm.
your God inspired dreams and visions. Thirdly, surpass. We are wanting to exceed our best ideas and our best plans for our futures. And we want to pursue God's greater purpose. And last but certainly not least is to be in expectations, to be in a great hope, for the unexpected to be fulfilled by God's greater plan, His purpose, and His promises. So now that you know the framework for us calling this celebration Rise Women, we just want to jump in, and I want to hear from you, Nina. Any introductory remarks that you want to make prior to us kind of tackling some of the questions that I'm curious about?
Yeah, everything you said there, Sheila, Jack. I was sitting here jotting down notes for things that were popping out to me as you were speaking. And when you said the word faith, I really think that encompasses every piece of the RISE acronym, everything that you just spoke about. And I think when we think about faith, we look at it sometimes as such a grand gesture that we have to really work hard to fulfill each and every day. But for me, there were two things that it really boiled down to. And well, three things. And that was obedience, fear, and trust. And so in hearing your acronym of RISE and the explanation, for me, it really comes down to the obedience of God's purpose for us. When we open ourselves, avail ourselves to His purpose, that's when we surpass our own expectations. But we allow fear to stagnate us and to hold us back from really stepping into that thing that He called us to do from the beginning. And when we break down fear, understanding that that's our own fear, because if it's something that He's called us to do, He's already designed the plan, He's designed the purpose. And not only that, He's also promised us that He's standing right there next to us to help us get to that place of fulfillment. And it's also trusting in the purpose that He has given us. It's not about us. It's never about us. I'll often say that we weren't created to do life alone, and our purpose isn't designed just for us. Our purpose is for the world. Our purpose is to be the light and to shine impact through our experiences. And so those three things kind of stuck out to me in terms of maneuvering through the RISE structure that you talked about just now. Just overcoming our own fear to be obedient and trust in His overall purpose and plan for our lives. So I don't know if that was the introduction you were looking for. I think that probably was a lot more,
It's
but that's just
it's
what stood
perfect.
out. That's
It's
what stood out to
perfect.
me.
You know me. I trust that what I call this kingdom name dropping. When God drops the name for who's to be the guest, I'm sitting back and I'm just taking in everything that God has given you to pour out. So
Yeah,
whatever He's given you, that's where you pour out. And you mentioned three keys, I think, to the kingdom empowered life, and that is God's plan, His purpose, and His promise. And
yeah,
if we can just embrace those
yeah.
three things, but you said by
Mm-hmm.
faith, we will be well on our way,
Yeah,
rising in every opportunity that God gives us, rising above our fears, rising to
yeah,
obey Him and to trust Him. So
yeah,
let's get started with our rise sharing. Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His work that is power within us." So my first question, Nina, is what unexpected opportunities has God placed on your path for discovering your life purpose?
That's a great question, and I'm a highlight the word unexpected because what I use as the start of my journey is the start of motherhood, my motherhood journey. And so, while that necessarily wasn't unexpected, because that's something that my husband and I were definitely planning for, we were excited about. Um, we went into that with the design of what society paints for that process and that journey. So when we actually became parents and started really experiencing the journey and going through the different transitions of parenthood, specifically me and motherhood, it was really unexpected. Some of the things that stirred up in me and some of the things that I had to process and really work through because of the beautiful white picket fence vision that I was trying to follow. And so the journey necessarily wasn't unexpected, but it was the process of it was very unexpected. And so in that, however, is where my life purpose was birthed. And so understanding that me trying to follow this glorious path that many others have already taken, I realized that there were some flaws in that, right? Like I wasn't fulfilled in the way that I thought that I needed to be. I wasn't fulfilled in the way that I wanted to be. And I was really becoming more broken down from the motherhood journey than finding joy out of it. And so I really had to make a really hard decision to start doing things differently. I had to make a decision to not necessarily forge my path to be aligned with the white picket fence vision, or even the vision of those matriarchal figures that I had looked to, my grandmothers, my aunts, my godmothers, all those strong, beautiful women that have come before me. Their way wasn't working for me. And so that's when I really had to bear down and get in the sheets and get in the bed with Jesus and really figure out what this plan for myself and my family was going to look like in order to walk in the purpose that he has for us. And so that when I made that decision to not do it everyone else's way and to just turn to God and say, God, how will you have me do this? Not how I want to do this. That's when the doors really began to open up and I started accessing that joy that I was seeking and not feeling forced to feel it and to do it under someone else's circumstances and route that they went about doing it.
I'm glad you shared that whole thing about not trying to do it everyone else's way, because you and I know that our plans and our paths are so uniquely created and crafted by God. Yeah, there are some well established little things that we can do in pattern. There are some things that are basic to parenting, right? Or it might,
Yeah.
for me, it was be more grandparenting,
Yeah.
because I don't have birth children. I have children by marriage. But recognizing that when Jesus called us to be followers, it was followers of him and
Mm-hmm.
not followers of trends and the world's culture. So I'm so glad that you shared that, because I think somebody needs to know and to appreciate the authenticity of who God created them to be.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, for
there are
sure.
lessons that we can learn from other people's journeys, but we can't let it overmask or overtake our hearing from God and following the path that He's leading. So you
Mhm.
shared during that um, discussion about some of the challenges that you encountered. Can you give us like one real specific thing that you said, I'm doing this my way?
Yeah, I'll start with therapy. I had to really invest time, energy, and money into therapy to help me kind of process again, like letting go some of the ways and processes of those who have come before me that I held so deeply to my heart, but they did not do therapy. They did not ask for help. They did not. share or spread any of their business outside of their household. And I'm not saying that that's what I do. I just go out in the streets and I tell everything about what's going on in my household. But I am such an advocate for utilizing the resources that God has given us, skilled and trained individuals to help. When we get in transitional phases in our life, it kind of clouds our vision of our path of life. And so it's so important to have unbiased individuals in your life to help you kind of put all that stuff up in a non-judgmental form and clear it out, and then kind of sort through and figure out how you're going to make a plan for the next steps. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I have incorporated into my life that those before me and around me may not necessarily did, that is extremely different. Like, I'm such a huge advocate and encourager of therapy and counseling and coaching for sure.
And that leads directly into this whole ignite part of Rise, where we talk about, igniting and fueling up our faith so that we can live out our God sized dreams and visions and forward. So you've talked about some very practical tools and resources that are God approved, first of all, for people who may not think therapy is God approved. It is God approved. If we read our Bibles, we
Mm-hmm.
won't see the word therapy, but we will see the practice of therapy throughout the Bible. So Romans 13 tells us, be up and wake to what God is doing, for you know how late it is and time is running out. And when I was looking at the scripture, for someone who can be a procrastinator, I was like, girl, get up. It's time to go. We are rising above again over our circumstances. So tell us some practical ways that you had to just kind of like build up your faith so that you can go to that next level. And I know you shared, the therapy, but what is something that you did maybe in your just day-to-day personal life?
Um, and I'll say this as a lead word to some other practical steps. But I think, Sheila, the thing that really is important to couple along with that faith is taking action. The scripture tells us that faith without works is dead. And so a lot of times we're sitting in these situations and circumstances and we're talking about how we want to see life differently. And we're talking about how we know God has a greater purpose for us, but then we don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
We can't, we sit back and expect for the magic and the miraculous to happen when we haven't gotten our hands dirty and our feet dirty. And so what does that look like when I say action? I mean, that means not just talking about having a relationship with God, but actually getting in the word each and every day, spending time, going through, and in whatever format or way that you do it. I like to say Jesus is my homie. I have a very not disrespectfully, but I have a very close image of what my relationship with God is, and I can call on Him as He's my friend and my homie. And what that means is spending time and being in conversation and reading His Word in whatever format or way that looks like for you. What that means is actually moving my body, exercising, and working out, because it releases stress, it releases anxiety, it releases tension, and it improves your health tremendously for the longevity of, to improve the longevity of your life. And so it also means, again, like I said, the therapy. It also means meditation. It also means just getting out and moving your body, taking steps, identifying what those steps are that you can accomplish each and every day that are going to get you closer to your big overall goal or dream or vision or purpose at the end of the road. And so it's not necessarily about doing one big thing. It may mean many small things to build up to get you to that place of success or achievement that you choose to be.
And thank you for sharing because you are what you shared and the way that you shared it because we have real lives. And so, like you said, it's not just praying. It's not just reading the Bible. It's that day, because we have a mind, body, spirit, and soul. And God has entrusted us as stewards of that, the totality of our being. And so what you have shared addresses each of those components of how God has created us. So let's talk about surpassing. Again, Ephesians 3 tells us, now unto him who is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we could ever ask, think, or imagine. And the key part of all of this is according to his power that works in us. So, what is one example of a moment that you thought, no, I got a good plan for this, for my life, for this component or this phase of my life, but then you realize that God's greater purpose was not only unfolding and being revealed to you, but that it prevailed because you made a choice to say, okay, I'm going to set my little plane over here and I'm going to see and let God's purpose prevail.
Yeah. So I'll start with the decision for me to be a stay-at-home mom because that was mentioned in my introduction. And so that was the low level plan. Like, okay, I'll be a stay-at-home mom and I'll do all those things, the mommy and me, and I'll make sure dinner is cooked and kids are, dressed and clothed and every all those things, right? That was the plan. Well, then I got into that pit of the struggle, right? The pit of depression, the pit of anxiety, the pit of frustration, because I was not fulfilled in the way that my soul was created to be fulfilled. And so then I started doing the work. I started taking the action. I started taking little steps each and every day to fill my cup up. And then, but when I was born, God blessed me with something that I like to use a whole lot, and that's my mouth. And I'm not ashamed to use it. I'm not embarrassed by my story or my experiences. And Michelle, I know you follow me on social media, and if anybody follows me on social media, you know that I kind of share in a very relatable aspect. And so, as I begin just to share different experiences and just verbalize what it was that I was experiencing and how it was that I was finding joy in these tough moments, others began to reach out to me as to how I was doing it. And so that's when I started noticing, like, okay, is this God, is this you setting up, using this experience, what I thought was so hard and difficult and unmanageable? Now you're turning it into something completely beyond me or completely beyond my low level. I'm going to just be a stay at home mom. Now you're turning this into something that's impacting other mothers, other women, other family members, because people are sharing these stories with their wives and their spouses. And that's when I realized that this is beyond me. It's bigger than me, and it's nothing that I didn't think about 10 years ago. 7 years ago, my son is about to be 7 on Friday. 7 years ago, I would not verbalize. I couldn't tell you that this is what I would be doing today. And so that's when I know that it's not a me plan, it's not a me thing, it's a God thing.
And so that leads us into this whole thing about expectations. So tell us about your ministry for women and how do you see God's purpose being fulfilled in that? But also, I want you to share for somebody who's just struggling, who they're like, oh, yeah, I know that scripture about live by faith and not by sight. I know the whole scripture about faith, not actions, but hey, I'm really struggling here. I'm having problems just believing that God actually has a rise purpose or a victorious destiny for me. Tell us about your powerful ministry slash business and how you serve women.
Yeah. So I am what I call a corner coach, and there's a little history behind that. But a corner coach is referenced in the boxing world, and so the corner coach is the coach that's in the corner that has those quick 2-3 minutes in between each round to whisper and impart strategy and words of encouragement for the boxer to go back out and try to improve on the match. And so my thought behind that is we all need a corner coach. We all need someone who is going to who's not in the fight per se, but is right there with you to kind of see on a greater scale what you are into and give you some encouragement on how to impart some small changes that are going to affect your fight, your battle. And so I do that specifically for moms who are feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, stressed out, and just completely empty with their role as a mother. We pour out every single day, every single minute, as parents, as godparents, as aunties, as all of those different roles, as caregivers, even as corporate women and entrepreneurs. We are always giving to everyone else, leaving ourselves empty. And so I specifically help moms and women to find small ways, because again, we don't have time. A lot of time we don't have a lot of money, and so I help them to see small changes that they can make that'll make huge impacts. And so that's done through self-care and community. And when I say self-care, we all love a good mani and pedi. We all love a good brunch and a good, girls trip. My thought process is, what happens when your trip is not planned? Your girls trip isn't planned until June. It's March the 20th and you are already losing it. How are you going to make it between now and June? And so these are things, most of the activities and the things that I try to incorporate into my mom's lives are free, less than 5 minutes. That will really shift your mindset for that for that moment, and sometimes for that day. You may have to do it repeatedly. You may have to do it longer than 3 minutes, but you have free and short resources that will shift your mood and help you to fill your cup so that you can serve others from your overflow and not depleting your own cup. Okay. And so for the mom who is, or for the woman who is like, okay, yeah, that sounds good, but I had the faith and I just don't know about the action, and I don't know how to get there. I say start small. Start small, start small, start small. When you start small and you do it a few times, you start to see a difference in your life. But the other part of that is you have to want to see positivity. You have to want to see a change. You have to be open to receiving help and to developing a community of individuals that can support you in this journey, because again, we weren't built to do life alone. We just aren't able to do life alone. And so you can get to a point where you can be all of these things. You can be the career woman, you can be the mom of the year, you can be the caregiver of the year. You can be all of these things, and you can be fulfilled within yourself to really operate in fullness, in wholeness, healthy, and in greatness. And so, in my bio, I love working with people. I'm such a people person, and I just really want to see people healed and whole and operating in their best capacity that they possibly can.
I I never knew. I had a question why you used the word corner coach, but I don't know why I never thought to ask you. So as you're sharing your story, like that's what I need. I need a corner. I need a corner coach. But thank you so much. And look at God uses everyday parts of His creation to help us make this life livable. I'll just speak for myself because I can make things complicated real quick. Part of that, I think, is part of the gifting or natural abilities that He's given me for when I need to be strategic and I need to come up with the 3, 5, 10. In my previous career, even, a 12-year plan we had to do sometimes. So I can kind of layer it on and on and on. I'm learning now to just step back. And in this season of my life where I'm not required to have a 5, 10, 15-year strategic plan,
Yeah.
I can just take it slower and let God help me layer and build the parts on it. Because I can, layer some stuff, but if I'm never going to put my faith in action, I'm just,
Yeah.
kind of building in vain.
Yeah.
So, Nina,
Yes, ma'am.
one of the things that we used to talk about in one of the other communities, God gave me this word about show up and show up strong. And people feel intimidated somebody word strong. I don't need to show up strong. You can just come as you are. When I said that, I'm talking about coming in the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. I'm talking about
Yeah.
coming empowered by the person who gives us our strength. This is not about us being strong in and of ourselves.
Mm-mm.
And I think the ministry that God has given you, where you said, hey, I'm the corner coach, and then you going back into the ring. You know what I'm saying? So it's showing up in a strength that is beyond ourselves. The women that we are hoping to aspire here at Life Purpose by Design, and also through your ministry, we're wanting them to be inspired and rising by faith. I don't know how anybody does life apart from being in a relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I really just don't know how to do life that way. So I'm just so grateful that I got introduced to God at a very young age. So even on my journeys of up and downs, rights, wrongs, going left when he said go right, knowing that I could come back to the center of my being, of my creative being and my purpose, has just been a light on my path. So I want to share two scriptures to just inspire women that they can really do this, because there's nothing impossible for us by faith.
Mm-mm.
We may think that it's impossible because of the fear that you mentioned earlier. But if
Yeah.
we can trust God that his faith is an authentic faith, it's an authentic confidence and trust that you mentioned also, that we can put in God to lead us on this path. So the two scriptures that I want to share with women to encourage you to go ahead and take those small steps leading up to the bigger steps. The first is Luke 145. And it says, blessed is she who believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her. It is God who is going to fulfill his plan, his purpose, and his promises. The second is 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power
Mm-hmm.
and of love and of a sound mind. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned earlier the power of therapy, the power of helping services, supportive services. All of that is part of what God has purposed and designed for us to be able to live this life, to live it as he has purposed it, as he has planned it, and as he has promised us. So having a sound mind
Mm-hmm.
is critical to that. And I know that shows up in different ways in different people. And I know that we acknowledge that there are people who struggle with real day-to-day struggles, mentally, emotionally. Regardless of what that struggle is, I just want to encourage you that there are resources that are there that are available for you to seek it out. The Bible tells us that if we ask, if we knock, if we seek, if you are really struggling to figure out how do you fit into this wise woman story of God's, it's God's story for your life. It is God who empowers you to do the kingdom work, to live by faith and not by sight. Please, please seek out the resources that are ordained by God so that you can be healthy in mind, body, spirit, and soul. So now I had this, what I'm calling a rise to purpose proclamation. And I just want us to be in a spirit of agreement as we encourage our sisters to repeat this after us. So, the rise to purpose proclamation, I just want us to say it together. I want you women and anybody else that's watching this, I don't want to leave the brothers out if they're watching, but I just want you to proclaim this so that you can hear your voice saying it. So now let's do it. Starting today,
Starting today,
it's my time to
it's my
rise.
time to rise.
I am ready
I am ready
to ignite
to
my
ignite
faith,
my faith, surpass man's
your
idea,
plans for my
plan
life.
for my life.
I expect
I expect fulfillment
fulfillment of my God's
of my
greater
God's greater
purpose
purpose
life.
life.
There's just been a release in just saying that. And I've had to say this. I'm not just saying this to you. I'm saying this because I need to hear it. I need this. I need to every day reminded that I need to be ready for God's unexpected opportunities. I need to ignite. I need to set my faith on fire. I need to surpass and think greater than my little itty bitty ideas and plans that I came up. And I need to know that the God of hope is not going to disappoint me, but He is going to fulfill His plan, His purpose, and His promise. So I want to just speak to the women for a minute. I hope and pray that as Nina has shared with you, her Rise Woman journey that continues every single day, that there has been a nugget of wisdom, there's been a word of inspiration, there's been a word that will motivate you and propel you to rise to your story, to rise to your kingdom empowered story, to walk by faith and not by sight. And as Nina said, to think about, how do I obey God? How do I face but overcome the fear? And how do I just trust God to keep me rising one day after the next day after the next day? Nina, thank you so much for joining us here at Life Purpose by Design to share your Rise to Purpose story. Thank you very much for planting that seed that, yes, I need a coach. I need a coach. Because I have these little moments throughout the day where I need some synergy injected into the moment.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that with us. And as we close out the month of March, we have one other special Rise woman that we are going to be celebrating on the next Monday, March 27th. So I want our audience to make sure that they set the date and the time right here at Life Purpose by Design at 1 p.m. on March 27th. And we have another Rise woman that we want to celebrate. I also have a special announcement that I want to share with you. During the month of February and part of March, I undertook a personal journey of doing the Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And it's a 40-day spiritual journey of discovering the answer to the question, what on earth am I here for? Your life purpose by God's design. Well, as part of that journey, I made a commitment to dust off some of the other books that's sitting on my shelves, just collecting dust, and it's not helping me, it's not helping anyone else. So we are launching for the month of April/May a new book read. It's going to be a live book talk that we're going to do through Zoom, and we're going to be promoting it on our Life Purpose by Design page, but also our Sheila Mills page, where you can register. It will be a Zoom live book talk community where we can come together, and we're going to go through Power Thoughts by author Joyce Myers. And it is 12 strategies to win the battle of the mind. We've got to do this mind thing. We got to do the work around our mind because we have the mind of Christ. And so I hope that you will join us for the Power Thoughts live book talk in our Zoom community for the month of April and a few weeks into May. We will be meeting on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. I'm telling you, it will be worth the time investment that you're going to put in to looking at the strategies to strengthen so that you can have a sound mind to be empowered for what God has purposed you to do. Thank you so much for joining us today here at Life Purpose by Design. Our mission is for you to live empowered on purpose, with clarity, with a commitment to finished purpose, and also with a courageous faith. Feel free to reach out to us, to contact us if you're needing help with any of those three areas so that you too can live empowered on purpose. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you at our next episode of Life Purpose by Design.